Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for an all new episode recap of today's Days of Our Lives, January 16, 2025. So let's get into the fact that Leo is jumping to conclusions yet again, trying to destroy the friendship that he just started back with Javi, right? By accusing him of being lady whistleblower off of just seeing him in this Rochester sweater. So he was on the phone with Abe telling him that he's not going to rewrite the fate script, and also that there's no need to go to New York because he found out who is behind Lady Whistleblower, and it's Javi Hernandez. Again, he got a knock at the door. He said he's sure that it's that person, and he got a knock at the door and it's Marlena, just checking in on him. So he tells her that Javi and him are back on good terms, and she's happy to hear that. So he said it's probably not going to be for permanent because, he just thinks that Javi is behind Lady Whistleblower. And Marlena said, really? What made you think about it again? Remember what happened in the past? So he said, I'm sure it is him because he saw him in the Rochester thing. And, Stephanie and Abe were working on who really is behind it. And Stephanie and Chad found out that the person is working from New York. So he just, put two and two together in his head and think that Javi's behind it because of, the Rochester sweatshirt that he saw him in. So Marlena says, what other proof you have, which is true. What other proof other than circumstantial evidence do you have? Does he have any connections in New York? Where is he from? So Leo is saying that he's from Texas. He's based from there. He doesn't have any family or anybody there. So she said, you're just going off of just one thing. You need to be sure about it before you go and really accuse him of it. You don't want to really do that and mess up things between you guys again. So he said, you're right. I should really think this through before. So anyways, he thanks her, and then she said, you can repay me by bringing me the lunch, and that's what he does. So Holly is checking in on Doug to tell him that, she came up with the other rest of the money from asking her grandmother. I don't know what Holly is getting herself into that deep with this guy, right off the bat. But anyways, she's willing to do it. So what's his name? Tate comes in, right, with his sorry self, with some, bouquet of flowers, thinking that it's gonna, take away all the pain and damage that, he partly caused, right? So anyways, she said, what's the occasion for it? So he said, it's just to really show you how sorry I am for all that you've been through, and that I still care about you, and I really don't want this to come between us. Well, it already did, sir. But anyways, she said, I understand, and the fact is Sophia is gonna have this baby, your baby, in a couple of months, and I'd be lying if I don't feel a type of way about it. And he understands how much it has hurt her, and he really wishes that this never was happening. She says she understands, and she doesn't blame him or Sophia. They weren't together when they hooked up, and they used protection. They were trying to be careful, and he said, yes, we were trying to, but it is what it is. Like, a baby is coming, and he tells her that, they thought about giving the baby up for adoption, but they haven't brought it to Sophia's mom yet, which probably, she'll be against that. But, they're just trying to look at the option to see how best, they can move on with their lives. So, yeah, that was it with them. She seems to buy it, and she doesn't want to lose him either. But if I were you, Holly, I would cut my losses. If you were my daughter, I'd tell you to cut your losses and leave this boy alone. So go to Javi and Gabby, right? Which, again, you guys gonna realize that I really can't stand this new Gabby. Again, nothing to do with the actress, but I can't stand this portrayal of her. She's getting really... Gabby was always annoying, but not this level of annoying, right? And intrusive. So she's trying to tell Javi that, look, I just spoke with Carrie, and he's a great guy. He has all these good attributes, which I don't think everything about him. But anyways, she tells Javi that you're really gonna sabotage your relationship just because you rekindled this friendship with Leo, and I think that is a bad idea after what he did to you the last time. So he said, I get that you're upset about it, and I trust you, I respect your opinion, but like, we just started about this friendship, and I'm not going to, like, end this friendship just because you feel a type of way. And if Carrie, I get that Carrie is upset, but like, Kerry is supposed to be a great guy, and he should understand that I can be friends with whoever I want. He has to just respect that. So Javi's he's not backing down from that. And Gabby saying that you're making a big mistake, and he said, well, it's my mistake to make. And I'm full agreement with Javi. Like, it's your choice who you want to hang out with. Like, Gabby is not your mom, and furthermore, you're a grown man. Like, do what you want to do. So Gabby need to back off. So Miss Rachel, she, I don't know why Brady and Kristen don't understand that this child is a lot smarter than she let off. So she gets a butter knife to open up the drawer to get out her phone, right? But Kristen was ahead of her and got it from her. And she said, Rachel was trying to cover up, saying that she was trying to play a game on it. And Kristen saw that she was trying to text Ava and said that, thought she got rid of me easily. And, she said, listen, like, Rachel, she sit her down and said, Rachel, we need to get you some help. We need you to see a therapist. So she said, I don't want to go to therapist. You can't make me. I'm saying, really, little girl. But anyways, she asked her, what's a therapist? So Kristen says that it's somebody that you can, confide in and tell them all your feelings about anything you want to talk about. So she said, she'll be open to the idea. So she thought she was gonna go to Marlena because she understand that it's like a shrink. So she says, no, it's not gonna be Marlena because you guys are closely related, and it probably be too biased. So she said somebody new where you can really tell them all your feelings without feeling any type of way. So she said that she'd be open to that, and she said if she does it, will her mom will Kristen and her dad get back together. So she said, no, we're not getting back together. I know you had your hopes up, and so did I, but we're not gonna get back together. But one thing we have in common is that we care and we love you, and we just really want the best for you. So she understands, and she agrees to it, or so we think, right? So Kristen calls Brady and tells him the good news that Rachel is down for therapy, and he's happy to hear that. And as she was talking about, that Rachel packed her little bag and silently come out of the Demare mansion. So this little girl, I don't know, she needs to be taken up. But again, look at her parents. Can't really blame the kid. So speaking of Brady, right, so Ava comes over and Brady tells her that it wasn't Kristen that was sending her the text messages, it was Rachel. So she was surprised. She didn't really think it would be Rachel, but he said that he explained that Kristen, found out after, Ava went over there initially, and she found out that she was texting her from her phone actually. So what happens is that they confiscated the phone, and now they're thinking of getting her some therapy. I don't know why Brady would confide that personal detail with Ava. I mean, they just start seeing each other, but anyways, he confided in her that detail. And they're saying that it's gonna be an unbiased therapist. It's not gonna be Marlena, because Kristen really don't want Marlena to bring up anything about her and all that, right? So Ava is saying, since that's gonna happen, maybe it's best we don't see each other. You need to be focused solely on your daughter, getting her the help she needs. And he said, I really don't want to do that. I mean, last time I had to break up with Chloe because of what Rachel was doing. And if I keep on doing that pattern, every person that I get with, she's gonna try to sabotage it, and she's gonna act up, and I'm gonna give into it, and I'm not gonna do it this time, right? I'd like it if we can really continue seeing each other and all that. So Ava is open to that, right? So back to Tate and Holly, right? Doug comes in, and he's just saying that he's here because he got the text message from Holly. So Holly introduces Doug to Tate and vice versa, and she said that this is Doug Williams' grandson, Doug, and he was the person that I was gonna invite to the concert that you couldn't go to because of the whole pregnancy thing, and it didn't work out because I wasn't in the mood, right? Because you already know. So he said, "Oh, you're a fan of the band and stuff," and he said, "Yeah, I am." So it was a little bit, I would say, a little bit awkward, the two guys and Holly in the back. So Tate asked him flat out, like, what are you doing here? So before he got to answer, he got a text message from Sophia that, the appointment got pushed up to today and that he had to be there. So she's surprised because she's saying, "You're going to support her at the appointment?" And he said, "Yeah, I promised her that I'll be there, so I have to go," right? So of course that, let Holly feel uncomfortable. So Doug asked her, not to pry, but Sophia's keeping the baby. So she said, "Yeah, she's keeping the baby." And I guess Tate had to do what he had to do, and Doug said, "Sorry to really just, intrude or come here unannounced." And she said, "It's fine. I mean, Tate already went off without, he went off to do his business, so it is what it is." I agree with you, girl. So Javi was talking to Carrie after that to meet up with him in the square for lunch. And, Carrie was actually in the square writing another column to really destroy Leo and all that, right? Doing his own miserable thing. So remember Leo offers to, take Marlena out to lunch, right? So they are coming out of the Salem Inn, right? And they see Javi wearing the same Rochester sweater and Carrie. So Leo said, "Oh, Javi, I'm glad I ran into you. This is Marlene. I was just talking about you with her and how we are friends again." So he introduces Javi to Marlene and vice versa. And he also introduces Carrie at a later time because he really was not trying to see Carrie. So anyways, he's trying to be, indirect but direct, saying, "I like that Rochester sweatshirt that you have on, like, where you got it?" So he said, "Oh, Carrie gave it to me." So now Leo is trying to think, hopefully Leo thinks and put two and two together finally and say, okay, it's Carrie behind it, or maybe he's just gonna be stupid and not really, put things together properly. Because Marlena had to help him out earlier. But that was it, guys. I mean, comment below your thoughts on today's episode. I will see you guys tomorrow. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to my channel.